All right, we're back. Nate, I've broken these teams into three categories here. The first category I want to talk about is teams that were efficient running the ball last year, but still went ahead and made a big swing at running back. Those three teams are the Ravens, the Eagles, and the Packers. Ravens obviously add Derrick Henry, the Eagles add Saquon Barkley, and the Packers added Josh Jacobs. Like, you can look back at the stats last year, you'd think like, these are good run teams. Like what the hell are we doing making, they can throw out Gus Edwards, they can throw out AJ Dillon, I mean Kenny Gainwell, let's just throw out anybody. I think these teams are challenging that notion, and to me it sort of comes back to what we talked about, that Christian McCaffrey example, which is let's get a running back that we can theoretically, we'll see how it all works out, but like put a lot on that guy and really truly maximize our run game. So kind of any of those three teams stand out to you in terms of like what to think for like expectations here?
I would say biggest curiosity for me was the Eagles, because they have Jeff Stoutland and he's kind of like, their offensive line, I feel like was going to be okay. So it was one of those where they didn't have to invest in Barkley so much. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to watch it, like, because I just want to see what it looks like. The Ravens one, I don't know if like it's like Derrick Henry and Gus Edwards are like part of the same archetype of running back. Don't catch very well, straight line, big body. They're like the two best short yardage backs in the last 5 years. Like literally just he's like Gus Bus is a Diet Coke version of Derrick Henry. So my thoughts of this was, it's kind of like when we get in the conversation with quarterbacks where it's this is a guy we can win because of, and this is a guy we win because we can win with. And I think that's what they did with the running back position. They said, well, Gus Bus was, we can win with, but Derrick Henry sometimes is just, we're going to win because of. Because now we just pounded on him 400 times. And then we also, sprinkle in Lamar. So that's the thunder and lightning of all that. So that one I actually was kind of like, yeah, it's a in for a penny, in for a pound kind of investment. But I actually was kind of like, again, want to see it. The Packers to me felt like a Matt LaFleur, here you go. Like, let's not draft a young guy, like another young guy, and let's give LaFleur just a vet to throw in there. It was kind of funny just going from the Aaron Jones to Josh Jacobs thing, but
even though they still ended up drafting a young guy later in Marshawn Lloyd.
I know, because that's because Goody could just do whatever he wants there. It's like, that's what's nice when you have no owner. you could just, sure, head coach, you're unhappy. Who are you going to talk to? But I think Jacobs, because he's such a smart player, 3-down guy, can catch fairly well. It also, solid runner. I think to me, that was more like giving LaFleur kind of an attaboy, throwing him a bone of like getting a nice safe player. I'm curious though what Jacobs looks like, because it wasn't great last year. Even if the Raiders run stuff and just their whole offense was just inept, like it wasn't like he was kind of really wowing me. So that's, I really like Josh Jacobs. That one was probably, so a lot of curiosities. I would say if I had to pick one, the Ravens one I like the most, but it's like a lot of them where I was like, I get it, but also I can get the negatives of all these as well.
Yeah. The Ravens one I think is the slam dunk of like, how am I going to stop myself from like drafting a ton of Derrick Henry this year? I'm not going to be able to, is the long and short answer of it. The Packers one I think stands out as the most intriguing for all the reasons you said there. And it sort of feels like, it's great that you bring up Brian Gutekunst, because it's like he sort of was able to straddle the fence here on this one. And that like, they did give Matt LaFleur this Josh Jacobs, which I had the exact same read on it that you did, which is like the Packers want to be able to be more diverse in the run game. They want to be able to do a little bit of everything, like the Rams are doing, like the 49ers are doing. And Jacobs is a back that allows you to do that, especially on some of those gap scheme stuff.
He's great on duo. Yeah, that's a great point. No, that's a great point. Yeah.
But at the same time, they still gave him a contract that's like, well, if he shows up looking like 2023 Josh Jacobs, like we're out of here. And then like we also draft Marshawn Lloyd, and like LaFleur keeps, anytime there's a mic in front of him in training or like OTAs right now, he's like committee. I've always had a committee back. So I think that's the one that has the potential to be the most boom bust, I guess.
Yeah. It's for me, it would be the hardest to pick between as well. Like kind of like each week, and from fantasy purposes going like, like it's a kind of a stay away until proven otherwise. Because even Marshawn Lloyd is like, I kept kind of describing him as like a simple runner. And I didn't mean that as a diss. I just meant that like, he's going to get the yards blocked for him. And I think he does a good job of doing that. Like he plants his foot and goes, but it's not like where I'm like wowed by him. So it's not where it's like, well, you can't keep this guy off the field. But I think that's what they're kind of trying to do with their run game. Hey, we got Jordan Love, who I just named as my fifth best quarterback on Meta's show, which is a little bit of a heat check. But I rewatched like 4 games. I rewatched some of the. I watched them in real time, but then rewatched some of those games just for that pod, and I was just like, oh crap, I might have underrated them. Yeah, but I think that's what some of the thinking was, well, let's just have our singles hitters in the run game. We're going to get the explosives through the pass game. So let's just stay on schedule. Because I think last year, especially the first half of the year, none of the running backs were healthy. The offensive line was going through some stuff. It was so many 3rd and 10s and 3rd and 12s that, what LaFleur's background was get, 4 yards isn't a bad thing. 3 yards isn't a bad thing because now we're 2nd and 7 as opposed to 2nd and 12.
Right. Ironically, like they were able to do that when Aaron Jones, who they jettisoned, is when he was in there, they were able to do that. But of course, I think it's mostly just the health stuff. Yeah, I think it's mostly just the health stuff. But because then when you have AJ Dillon back there, it's like, well, we're lucky if we get 3 yards, So I think that's why they have to have Marshawn Lloyd in there too. So that is, I'm with you that at first it blush when they signed Josh Jacobs because I was high on the offense overall, and I'm high on Love. I love Reed and Wicks. Those guys are ballers, and like the other players are nice role players as well. They got 2 intriguing tight ends. I was like, okay, the feature running back on that team, like I want that guy in fantasy. But now that they've added Lloyd, there's more time to think about it, and he's going off the board as a 29th overall player in early best ball drafts. I'm like, yeah, we'll see. I think I have very much like a. Yeah, I think I have a very he's going ahead of Derrick Henry, which to me, like I'm taking Derrick Henry like 100 times out of 100.
Yeah.
I
know you're betting Henry's an outlier. Like, oh yeah, he hasn't missed time, but it's like I'm still betting on the outlier. Like he's because he has yet to prove otherwise for me.
Exactly.